Elorangea and in Intezin. Inzin. Hence names, indigenous Mexican names, we'll say mostly. So forgive me on this. And we'll get started. Here we go. And here we go. All right. Mexico, May 5th, 1996. Through my voice speaks the voice of the EZLN. On May 3rd, 1996, through a radio transmission, we found out about the sentence given to Jorge Javier Eloranja Berjugu and Sebastian Encins Gomez, declaring them guilty of the crimes of conspiracy, rebellion, and terrorism. Judge Juan Alcantara condemned Jorge Javier Eslerange Bardigu to 13 years in jail, a fine equal to 75 days, wages, and a 4-year suspension of his political rights. Sebastian Encins Gomez was sentenced to 6 years in prison and a fine equal to 40 days, wages, and a 2-year suspension of his political rights. The Zapatistas National Liberation Army views the sentence of these presumed members of the EZLN as a clear sign of war. Jorge Javier Eloranje Berdigo and Sebastian Encins Gomez were accused of being Zapatistas and were condemned for the felonies of conspiracy, rebellion, and terrorism. This means that for the Mexican government, the Zapatistas are terrorists who must be jailed or killed. The dialogue between the EZLN and the Mexican federal government has received a severe setback as a result of these harsh penalties. The sentences are aimed beyond these presumed Zapatistas. They are sentences against the Commission of Concordance and Peace, COCOPA, and a group of legislators who, in the main, have maintained a dignified and brave attitude in the peacemaking efforts, who have tried everything to make a success of this search for peace with the justice and dignity that the Mexican people deserve. Judge Juan Alcantara's decision wipes out all the peace efforts of the COCOPA, and makes the mockery of the Mexican legislator. For the National Monetary Commission, CONIA, harassed and held hostage by the government, this is proof of the disregard of those in power. Another target is the body of advisors for peace and with justice and dignity. This independent organization set up to stop and reinitiating an armed violence joined hands with the EZLN in the dialogue of San Andres Sacramento de los Pobres. Judge Juan Alcantara decision condemned all Mexican men and women who worked for building peace in their country. It categorized them as terrorists. Prominent Mexicans and organizations beyond suspicion also shared the label of terrorists, placed on them by the only terrorist in Mexico, the government. Also, the sentencing of a presumed Zapatista's aims to intimidate journalists. Mr. Eloranje has seen his work used as evidence of his guilt and justification for his sentence. In Mexico today, journalism is synonymous with terrorism. In the national and international civil society, the force without face or name that seeks the transition to democracy through civil and legal means sees as efforts condemned and its fear confirmed. A peaceful path for change is still not open in Mexico. Ultimately, the main target of this verdict is the EZLN, who, by associating our just struggles for a dignified life with terrorism, the government warns that there is no possible way to use us to return to public life and peaceful politics. And only future with the government offers us at the end of the negotiating process to imprison and is prison and death. All efforts for a dialogue and peaceful struggle that the EZLN has undertaken since its public appearance in January 1994 have been condemned along with the presumed Zapatistas. We want to tell the government that we have received the message and have understood it. At this moment, our brothers from the General Command of the Clandestine Indigenous Revolutionary Committee, CCRI-CG, of the EZLN, are meeting to evaluate the situation and review the participation in the dialogue of San Andreas. As military chiefs of the regular, irregular, and commando forces of the EZLN, in compliance with the instructions of the CCRI-CG of the EZLN, I've sent the relevant orders to all the Zapatistas units to be prepared for the decision of our Supreme Command. All this time, the dialogue of San Andreas has been used by the government to gain time and to look for an opportunity to reignite the war. Reinitiate the war, sorry. Same thing. Was that what was denounced again and again by our Zapatistas delegates is now confirmed. At no moment did the government abandon the ideal of a military solution to the conflict. The dialogue process was only one more deception, just like those endured every day by our people. War arrives again from where it has always come from, power. We want to thank all honest journalists for the interest they have shown throughout these 2 years of frustrated peace attempts. We would also like to ask them to be the vehicles for us to thank the national and international civil society for the support they have given us towards the dignified peace and against war. Thanks for everything to everyone. We expect a decisive effort from the COCAPOA and the CONIA to forge forward on the path of active dialogue that the government has abandoned from the mountains of southeast Mexico. Subcomandante Sergeant Marcos. 19. Open remarks of the first intercontinental Encuentro for Humanity Against Neoliberalism, July 27, 1996. Aguascalientes II, Oventic, San Andreas, Sacamochanen de las Probras, on Chiapas, Mexico. Brothers and sisters of Asian, African, Oceania, Europe, and American, welcome to the mountains of the southwest of the Mexican Southwest. Let us introduce ourselves. We are the Zapatistas National Liberation Army. For 10 years, we have lived in these mountains, prepared to fight a war. In these mountains, we built an army. Below is the city, the plantations. We do not exist. Our lives are worth less than those of medicines or animals. We were like stones, like weeds in the road. We are silenced. We are faceless. We are nameless. We had no future. We did not exist. For the powers that we know internationally by the terms quote-unquote neoliberalism. We did not count. We did not produce. We did not buy. We did not sell. We are ciphers in the accounts of big capital. When we went to the mountains to find ourselves and see if we could ease the pain of being forgotten like those stones and weeds, here in the mountains, the Mexican southeast, our dead live on. Our dead who live in the mountains know many things. They speak to us of their death, and we hear them. Coffins speak and tell us another story. That comes from yesterday and points to tomorrow. The mountain spoke to us, and the Mesi Halob We common and ordinary people. We are simple people, as power tells us, every day and the next night. Power wants us to dance the extol and repeat its brutal conquest. The Khazad-dûzul, the false man, rules our land and has giant war machines, like the Boo, have half puma and half horse. That spread pain and death among us. The trickster's government sends us the Laluxab, the liars who fool our people and make them forgetful. That is why we became soldiers. That is why we remain soldiers. Because we want no more death and trickery for our people. Because we want no more forgetting. The mountain told us to take up arms, so we would have a voice. It told us to cover our faces, so we would have a face. It told us to forget our names, so we could be named. It told us to protect our past, so we could have a future. In the mountains, the dead live, our dead. With them live the Vultan and the Ilk, IKIL, in the light and the darkness, the wet and the dry, the earth and the wind, the rain and the fire. The mountain is the home of the Holench, eunuch, the real human beings, the big chief. Here we learned and remembered that we are what we are, the real men and women. So with our voice strengthens our hands, with our face reborn, with our name renamed. Our yesterday at the center of the 4 points of the Chan Santa Cruz in Baum Na. The star was born, who defies humanity, and reminds us that there are 5 parts that make up the world. In the season when the Chaukob ride, spreading the rain, we came down once more to speak with our own and prepared the storm that will signal the harvest. We brought forth the war in the 0 year. We began to walk this path that has brought us to our hearts, and today brings you to ours. This is who we are, the Zapatistas National Liberation Army, the voice that arms itself to be heard, the face that hides itself to be seen, the name that hides itself to be named, the red star who calls out to humanity and the world to be heard, to be seen, to be named, tomorrow to be harvested in the past, behind our black mask, behind our armed voice, behind our unnameable name, behind us who you see, behind us we are you, behind we are the same simple and ordinary men and women who are repeated in all races, painted in all colors, speaks in all language, and live in all places, the same forgotten men and women, the same excluded, the same untolerated, the same persecuted. We are you. Behind us are you are us. Behind our mask is the face of all excluded women, of all of the forgotten indigenous, of all the persecuted homosexuals, of all the despised youth, of all the beaten migrants, of all those in prison for their words and thoughts, of all the humiliated workers, for all those who died from neglect, of all the simple and ordinary men and women who don't count, who are not seen, who are nameless, who have no tomorrow. Brothers and sisters, we have invited you to this meeting to seek for and find ourselves and us, to find yourself and us. We have all touched our hearts, and you can see we are not special. You can see we are simple and ordinary men and women. You can see we are a rebellious mirror that wants to be a pane of glass and break. We can see we are who we are, so we can stop being who we are to become the you who we are. We are the Zapatistas. We invite you, for all of us, to hear ourselves and to speak to ourselves, to see all that we are. Brothers and sisters, in these mountains, And talking coffins spoke to us and told us ancient stories that recall our pains and our rebellions. Our dreams will not end as long as we live. We will not give up our banner. Our death will live on forever. So say the mountains that speaks to us. So says the stars that shines in Chan and Chan Santa Cruz. So tells the star that the crucible and rebels will not be defeated and will continue on their road alongside everyone in the human constellation. That the red people, the Chakchankam-mak, the Chinchak-mak, will always come, the red star that will help the world be free. So says the star, that is the mountain. What that the people who are 5 people, the people who are the star of all people, the people who are humanity and are all the world's people, they will come to aid the worlds who become human in their struggle. So the true man and woman live without pain, and the hearts of stone to be softened. You are all the Chakchankam-mak, the people who come to help the man who becomes 5 throughout the world, among all peoples and in all nations. You are all the red star who are mirrored in us. You can continue to the right path if we, the you, who are us, walk together. Brothers and sisters among our people, the oldest sages have put a cross that is a star where the water and giver of life is born. Thus a star marks the beginning of life in the mountains. Thus are born and auroras that come down from the mountain, that carry the voice and the speaking star, and are Chan Santa Cruz. The voice of the mountain has spoken, and it has said that true men and women will live free when they commit to the 5-pointed star, when the 5 peoples become one in the star, when the 5 parts of humanity who are the world find themselves and find each other. When all 5 find their place and each other's places. Today, thousands of different roads come from 5 continents to meet here in the mountains of the Mexican southeast to join their steps. Today, thousands of words from the 5 continents are silent here in the mountains of Mexican southeast to hear each other and hear themselves. Today, thousands of struggles from the 5 continents struggle here in the mountains of the Mexican southeast for life and against death. Today, thousands of colors from the 5 continents are painted here in the mountains of the Mexican southeast to announce a future of inclusion and tolerance. Today, thousands of hearts from 5 continents still alive here in the mountains of the Mexican southeast for humanity and against neoliberalism. Today, thousands of humans begin from the 5 continents shout, "Enough is enough." Here in the mountains of the Mexican southeast, they shout, "Enough is enough," to conformity, to do nothing, to cynicism, to egoism, and to the modern God. Today, thousands of small worlds from 5 continents are attempting and beginning here in the mountains of the Mexican southeast and beginning to build a new and good world. That is, a world where all worlds fit. Today, thousands of men and women of the 5 continents begin here in the mountains of the Mexican southeast, and first intercontinental encuentro for humanity and against neoliberalism. Brothers and sisters of the whole world, welcome to the mountains of the Mexican southeast. Welcome to this corner of the world where we are all the same because we are different. Welcome to the search for life and the struggle against death. Welcome to this first intercontinental encuentro for humanity and against neoliberalism, democracy, freedom, and justice. From the mountains of the Mexican southeast, the Indigenous Clandestine Revolutionary Committee, General Command of the Zapatistas National Liberation Army. planet Earth. All right, number 20. Tomorrow begins today. So these are all selective works. So some of them are poems, some of them are essays, and others are different. It's just selective works. Pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. All right, here we go. Do 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 do. Okay, just came in to say fuck Trump. Yep. I'm looking back, not too many people. All right. Jean? All right, here we go. Close remarks at the First International Encuentro of Humanity and Against Neoliberalism, August 3rd, 1996. Through my voice speaks the voice of the EZLN. Brothers and sisters of the whole world, brothers and sisters of Africa, America, Asia, Europe, and Oceania. Brothers and sisters attending the First International Encuentro for Humanity and Against Neoliberalism. Welcome to the Zapatista, La Realidad. Welcome to this territory in the struggle for humanity. Welcome to this territory in rebellion against neoliberalism. The Zapatistas greet all who attend this El Centro, here in the mountains of the Mexican Southeast. When all assembly greets whoever comes with good words, we applaud. We ask that everyone greet each other and that everyone greets the delegations from Italy, Brazil, Great Britain, Paraguay, Chile, the Philippines, Germany, Peru, Argentina, Austria, Uruguay, Guatemala, Belgium, Venezuela, Iran, Denmark, Nicaragua, Zaire, France, Haiti, Ecuador, Greece, Japan, Kurdistan, Ireland, Costa Rica, Cuba, Sweden, the Netherlands, South Africa, Switzerland, Spain, Portugal, the United States, and the Basque country, Turkey, Canada, Puerto Rico, Bolivia, Australia, Mauritania, Mexico, Norway, and Colombia. Welcome all men, women, and children, and elders from the 5 continents who have responded to the invitation of the Zapatistas indigenous to search for hope for humanity and to the struggle against neoliberalism. Brothers and sisters, when this dream that awakens today in La Realidad began to be dreamed by us, we thought it would be a failure. We thought that maybe we could gather here a few dozen people from a handful of countries. We were wrong. As always, we were wrong. It wasn't a few dozen, but thousands of human beings, those who come from 5 continents, to find themselves in the reality at the close of the 20th century. The words born within these mountains, these Zapatista mountains, found the ears of those who could listen, care for, and launch it anew, so that it might travel far away and circle the world. The sheer lunacy of calling to the 5 continents to reflect clearly on our past, our present, and our future, found it wasn't alone in its delirium. Soon, from the whole planet began to work on bringing the dream to rest in La Realidad, to bathe in the mud, to grow in the rain, to moisten it in the sun, to speak it with each other, to bring it forth, give it shape and substance. As to what happened in these days, much will be written later. Today we can say that we are certain of at least one thing: a dream dreamed in the 5 continents can realize itself in La Realidad. Now, who will be able to tell us that dreaming is lovely but futile? Now, who will be able to argue that dreams, however many the dreamers, cannot become a reality? Who is joy dreams in Africa? What marvels walk in the European dream? How many tomorrows does the dream encompass in Asia? To what music does the American dream dance? What does the heart speak that dreams in Oceania? To whom does it matter how and what we dream, here or in part of the world? Who are they who dare to let their dreams meet with all the dreams of the world? What is happening in the mountains of the Mexican southeast that finds an echo and a mirror in the streets of Europe, the suburbs of Asia, the countryside in America, the township of Africa, and the houses of Oceania? What is it that is happening with the peoples of the 5 continents, who, so we are all told, only encounter each other to complete or make war? Wasn't this turn of the century synonymous with disappear, bitterness, and cynicism? From where and how did all these dreams come to La Realidad? May Europe speak with a recount the long bridge of its gaze crossing the Atlantic and history to come to rediscover itself in La Realidad. Many Asians speak, and may Asia speak and explain the gigantic leap in hearts and leaps its heart has taken to come to be in La Realidad. May Africa speak and describe a long sailing of its relentless image to come to reflect upon itself in La Realidad. May Oceania speak and tell of the many flights of its thought to come to rest in La Realidad. May America speak and remember its swelling hope to come to renew itself in La Realidad. May the 5 continents speak and everyone listen. May humanity suspend for a moment its silence of shame and anguish. May humanity speak. May humanity listen. In the world of those who live and kill for power, there is no room for human beings. There is no space for hope, no place for tomorrow. Slavery or death is the choice that their world offers all worlds. The world of money. Their world governs from the stock exchange. Today, speculation is the principal source of enrichment, and at the same time, the best demonstration of the atrophy of our capacity to work. Make sure. Hold on a second, everybody. Oops. I didn't mean to do that. Hold on a second, everybody. Sorry. I meant to do this.
In the world of those who live and kill for power, there is no room.
Oh, it's going to take a little bit.
There is no space for hope, no place for tomorrow. Slavery or death is the choice that their world offers all
Almost there.
worlds. The world of money, their world, governs from the stock exchanges. Today, speculation is the principal source of enrichment, and at the same time the best demonstration of the atrophy of
I was right. Atrophy. Atrophy. All right. Of our capacity to work. Work is no longer necessary in order to produce wealth. Now all that is needed is speculation. Crimes and wars are carried out so that the global stock exchange may be pillaged by one or the other. Meanwhile, millions of women, millions of youth, millions of indigenous, millions of homosexuals, millions of human beings of all races and colors participate in the financial markets only as a devalued currency, always worth less and less, the currency of their blood turning a profit, the globalization of markets, erasing borders for speculation and crime and multiplies them for human beings. Countries are obliged to erase their national borders for money to circulate, but to multiply their internal borders. Neoliberalism doesn't turn many countries into one country. It turns each country into many countries. The lie of unipolarity and the internationalization turns itself into a nightmare of war, a fragmented war again and again. so many times the nation are pulverized in this world power globalized to overcome the obstacles to its war of conquest. National governments are turned into the military underlings of a new world war against humanity for the unintelligent course of nuclear armament, disdained to annihilate humanity in one blow. It has turned to the absurd militarization of every aspect of life in the life of national societies. The militarization destined and destined to annihilate humanity in many blows, in many places, and in many ways. What we're formerly known as national armies are turning into mere units of a greater army, one that neoliberalism arms to lead against humanity. The end of the so-called Cold War didn't stop the global arms race. It only changed the model for the merchandising and mortality. Weapons of all kinds and sizes for all kinds of criminal tastes. More and more, not only are the so-called institutional armies armed, but also the army's drug trafficking builds up to ensure its reign. More or less rapidly, national societies are being militarized, and armies supposedly created to protect their borders from foreign enemies, or turning their cannons and rifles around and aiming them inward. It is not possible for neoliberalism to become the world's reality without the argument of death served up by institutional and private armies, without the gags severed up by prison, without the blows and assassinations served up by the military and the police. National repression is a necessary premise of globalization neoliberalism imposes. One more, neoliberalism advances as a global system, and more numerous grow the weapons and the ranks of the armies and national police. The number of imprisoned, the disappeared, and the assassinated in different countries also grows. A world war, a most brutal, a most complete, the most brutal, the most complete, the most universal, the most effective. Each country, each city, each countryside, each house, each person, each is a large or small battleground. On the one side is neoliberalism, with all its repressive power and all its machinery of death. On the other side is the human being. There are those who resign themselves to being one more number in a huge exchange of power. There are those who resign themselves to being slaves. He who is himself master to slaves also cynically walks the slave's horizontal ladder in exchange for the bad life, the crumbs that power hands out. There are those who sell themselves, resign themselves, surrenders themselves. In any part of the world, there are slaves who say they are happy being slaves. In any part of the world, there are men and women who stop being human and take their place in the gigantic market that trades its indignity. But there are those who do not resign themselves. There are those who decide not to conform. There are those who do not sell themselves. There are those who do not surrender themselves. Around the world, there are those who resist being annihilated in this war. There are those who decide to fight. And any place in the world, any time, any man or any woman rebels to the point of tearing off the clothes resignation has woven from them, for them, and cynicism has dyed gray. Any man or woman of whatever color, in whatever tongue, speaks and says to himself or to herself, enough is enough. Yea, but basta. Enough Enough is enough of lies. Enough is enough of crimes. Enough is enough of death. Enough of war, says any man and woman. Any man and woman in whatever part of any of the 5 continents eagerly decides to resist power and to construct his or her own path that doesn't lead to the loss of dignity and hope. Any man or woman decides to live and struggle for his or her part in history. No longer does power dictate his or her steps. No longer does power administer life and decides death. Any man or woman responds to death with life and responds to nightmare by dreaming and struggles against war, against neoliberalism for humanity. For struggle for a better world, all of us are fenced in the threatened and threatened with death. The fence is reproduced globally in every continent, every city, every countryside, every house. Power's fence of war closes in on the rebels, for whom humanity is always grateful. But fences are broken in every house, in every countryside, in every city, in every state, in every country, every continent, on every continent. The rebels, whom history repeatedly has given us the length of its long trajectory, struggles, and the fence is broken. The rebels search each other out. They walk towards one another. They find each other and together break their fences. In the countryside, the city, in the states, in the nation, on the continents, the rebels begin to recognize each other, to know themselves as equals and different. They continue on their fatiguing walk, walking as it is now necessary to walk. That is to say, struggling. The reality spoke to them then. Rebels from the 5 continents heard it and set off to walking. To arrive at the intercontinental La Realidad, each one has had to make his or her own path from the 5 armies of the star, from the 5 arms of the star of the world, the step of men and women who dignified word search for a place to be spoken and heard has come to La Realidad, to this encuentro. Many fences had to be broken to come and break through the fence around reality. There are different fences. In ours, one must get past the police, custom officials, tanks, cannons, trenches, planes, helicopters, rain, mud, insects. Each one of the rebels from the 5 continents has his or her own fence, struggle, and a broken fence to add to the memory of other rebels. So it was at this intercontinental encuentro began. It was initiated on all the continents and only in all the countries, in all the places where any man or woman began to speak and say to themselves, enough is enough. Yep. Who can say in, there's only 4 of us. Who can say in what precise locale and at what exact hour and date this intercontinental encuentro for humanity and against neoliberalism began? We don't know, but we do know who initiated it. All the rebels around the world did. Where here we are only a small part of those rebels. It's true. But to all the different fences that all the rebels of the world break every day, you have added one more rupture, that of the fence around the Zapatistas' reality. To achieve that, you had to struggle against your respective governments and then confront the fence and papers and procedures with which the Mexican government thought to detain you. You are all fighters, men and women who break through fences of all kinds. That is why you made it to La Realidad. Maybe you can't see the greatness of your achievement, but we see it. Some of the best rebels from the 5 continents arrive in the mountains of the Mexican southeast. All of them brought their ideas, their hearts, their worlds. They come to La Realidad to find themselves in other ideas, in other reasons, in other worlds. A world made of many worlds found itself these days in the mountains of Mexican southeast. I don't know why I keep doing that. In a world made of many worlds, opened a space and established its right to exist, raised the banner to being necessary, struck itself in the middle of the earth, reality to announce a better future, a world of all the worlds that rebel and resist power, a world of all the worlds that inhabits this world opposing cynicism, a world that struggles for humanity and against neoliberalism. This is the world that we live these days. This is the world that we found here. This Encentro wasn't to end in La Realidad. Now it must search for a place to carry on. But what's next? But what is next? Well, what next? Sorry. A new number in the useless enumeration of the numerous international orders. A new scheme for calming and easing the anguish of having no solutions. A global program for world revolution. A utopian theory so that it can maintain a prudent distance from the reality that anguishes us. A scheme that ensures each of us a position, a task, a title, and no work. The echoes goes a reflected image of a possible and forgotten, the possibility and the necessity of speaking and listening, not an echo that fades away or a force that decreases after reaching its apogee. Let it be an echo that breaks barriers and re-echoes. Let it be an echo of our own smallness, of the local and particular, which reverberates in an echo of our own greatness, the intercontinental and gigantic. An echo that recognizes the existence of the other and does not empower or attempt to silence it. An echo that takes its place and speaks its own voice, yet speaks the voice of the other. An echo that reproduces its own sound. It opens itself to the sound of the other. An echo of this rebel voice, transforming itself and renewing itself in other voices. An echo that turns itself into many voices, into a network of voices that before power, deafness opts to speak to itself, knowing itself to be one and many, not acknowledging itself to be equal in its desire to listen and to be listened to, recognizing itself as diverse in the tones of and levels of voices forming it. Let it be a network of voices that resists the war power wages on them. What is this guy I'm just reading, dude. What the hell's wrong with you? I don't know. Maybe, is it a Finley fire? What are you talking about, man? Let it be a network of voices that not only speaks, but also struggles and resists for humanity and against neoliberalism. Oh, he's bugging? Okay. A network of voices that are born resisting, reproducing their resistance in other quiet and solitary voices. A network that covers the 5 continents and helps the rest, help to resist the death that powers promises us. In the great pocket of voices, sound continues to search for their place, fitting in with others. The great pocket ripped continues to keep the best of itself, yet opens itself to what is better. The great pocket continues to mirror voices. It is a world in which sounds may be listed to separately recognizing their specificity It is a world in which sounds can include themselves in one great sound, a multiplication of resistance. The quote, I am not resigned, end quote, and the quote, I am a rebel, end quote, continues. The world with the many worlds that the world needs continues. Humanity recognizes itself to be plural, different, inclusive, tolerant of itself, full of hope, continues. A human, a rebel voice, consult on the 5 continents in order to become a network of voices, and resistance continues. Words are weak. Words can be powerful. What are you talking about? Words can be powerful. Oh my God, no. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Second Declaration in La Realidad for Humanity Against Neoliberalism, August 1996. Brothers and sisters of Africa, Asia, America, Europe, and Oceania, consider that we are, quote, we are against international order of death, against the globalization of war and armaments, against the dictatorship, against authoritarianism, against repression, against the politics of economic liberalization, against hunger, against poverty, against robbery, against corruption, against patriarchy, against xenophobia, against discrimination, against racism, against crimes, against the destruction of an environment, against militarism, against unintelligent, against lies, against ignorance, against slavery, against intolerance, against injustice, against marginalization, against forgetfulness, against neoliberalism. Consider that we are for the international order of hope, for a new, just a dignified peace, for a new politics, for democracy, for political liberties, for justice, for life, for dignified work, for civil service, society, for full rights for women in every regard, for respect for elders, children and youth. Sorry, I did that backwards. For the defense and protection of the environment, for intelligence, for culture, for education, for truth, for liberty, for tolerance, for inclusion, for remembrance, for humanity. We declare. First, hold on a second, that we will make a collective network for all our practical, particular struggles and resistance in the intercontinental network of resistance against neoliberalism, an intercontinental network of resistance for humanity. This intercontinental network for resistance recognizes differences and acknowledges similarities, will strive to find itself in other resistance around the world. The intercontinental network of resistance will be the medium in which distant resistance may support one another. This intercontinental network of resistance is not an organized structure. It has no central head or decision maker. It has no central command or hierarchies. We are the network, all of us who resist. Second, that we will make a network of communication among all our struggles and resistance against neoliberalism and for humanity. This network will attempt to create channels so that words may flow to all paths that resist. It will be the medium by which distinct resistance communicate with one another. This network is not an organizing structure, nor does it have a central head or decision maker, nor does it have a central command of hierarchies. We are the network, all of us who speak and listen. This we declare, to speak and to listen for humanity and against neoliberalism, to resist the struggle for humanity and against neoliberalism, for the whole world, democracy, liberty, and justice, from wherever reality of whichever continent. Brothers and sisters, we do not propose that those of us who are present here sign this declaration and end the Encuentro Day. We propose that the Intercontinental Encuentro for humanity and against neoliberalism continues on every continent, in every country, and every countryside and city, in every house, school, and workplace where human beings live who wants to be better, who wants a better world. The indigenous communities have taught us that to resolve a problem, no matter how great it may be, it is always good to consult all of the people we are. That is why we propose that this declaration be distributed around the world and that the consulta be carried out, at least in all of the countries in attendance, regarding the following question. Do you agree to subscribe to the second declaration of La Realidad for humanity against neoliberalism? We propose that this intercontinental consulta for humanity and against neoliberalism be realized on all 5 continents during the first 2 weeks of the December 1996. We propose that we organize this consulta in the same way that the Encuentro was organized, that all of us who attended and those who couldn't, but who follow us from afar, organize and carry out the consulta. We propose that we make use of all possible and impossible media in order to consult with the greatest number of human beings on all 5 continents. The Intercontinental Consulta is part of the resistance. We are organized and one way of making contacts and encounters with other resistance. Part of the new way of doing political work in the world. That is what the Intercontinental Consulta wants to be. Now, not only that, we also propose that we now call people of the Second Intercontinental Encuentro for Humanity against Neoliberalism. We propose that it be carried out in the second half of 1997, and that it be in the European continent. We propose that the exact date and place of the Encuentro be defined by our European brothers and sisters in a meeting they will hold after the first Encuentro. We all hope that there will be a second intercontinental Encuentro, and that it will be held, of course, in another continent. Then this second Encuentro is held. We want to make it clear that we will find a way to participate directly wherever it may be held. Brothers and sisters, we continue to be in the way. The theorist of neoliberalism tells us is false. That everything is under control, including everything that isn't under control. We are not a safety valve for the rebellion that could destabilize neoliberalism. It is false that our rebellion existence legitimizes power. Power fears us. That is why it pursues us and fences us in. That is why it jails and kills us. In reality, we are the possibility that can defeat it and make it disappear. Maybe there are not so many of us, but we are men and women who struggle for humanity, who struggle against neoliberalism. We are men and women who struggle around the world. We are men and women who want the 5 continents to have democracy, liberty, and justice. From the mountains of Mexican Southeast, the Indigenous Revolutionary Clandestine Community, General Command, Zapatistas National Liberation Army, Planet Earth. 22. Civil society that so perturbs. Let me make sure. Let's do it.
Civil society that so perturbs.
I was right, perturb. September 19th, 1996. I have not read Willis' books. Alright, anyways. To civil society, the only force that can save the country. To the people of Mexico, to the people and the governments of the world. Brothers and sisters, as of today, September 19th, 1996, it's been 11 years since a new political and special force emerged. As a result of the government's inability to confront the problems of the earthquake that shook the capital, this new force proved that it could respond to destruction with creativity to chaos, with organization to death with life. While the government vacillated between false promises and stealing humanitarian aid, civil society organized by itself to revive and rebuild a city that, amid all the pain, quickly reminded itself that it's nothing without its inhabitants. Thousands of residents mobilized themselves with nothing more than communal feelings, a feeling that had supposedly been buried in the earthquake of neoliberal modernity. Amid the debris, destruction, and death, those Mexicans rescued self-discovery and dignity. 11 years ago, thousands of Mexicans didn't invent their strength. They remembered it and put it to work with the country beside them. They discovered that you can take a direct part in solving problems the government leaders ignore. There are no historical momentums of government ceremonies for all these men and women who put forth heroic efforts from their using places. Without asking for praise or making conditions, they lived and died, nameless and faceless. The anonymous faceless heroism and the illuminated September 1985 was an answer to power's men in gray who plotted to sell dignity and forget history. From the first spontaneous response to the catastrophe, the force that emerged 11 years ago followed its own path, and in many cases turned itself into a civic organization. The self-discovery of September 1985 was all that was needed to nurture, cultivate, and organize this strength. This civil force, which has been around for 11 years, organized itself little by little to become proof that you can participate without aspiring to public office, that you can organize politically without being in a political party, that you can keep an eye on the government and pressure it to, quote, lead by obeying, that you can have an effect and remain yourself, give to yourself, be noble and honest and not to be selfish. This is how these organizations came to be. They served the people in the city and were compensated with the satisfaction of having done their duty and having received national and international recognition of their work. Today, 11 years later, the political forces with the most moral authority, legitimacy, and efficacy aren't the political parties or the government. The community organization in today's Mexico are the only credible forces. This new strength, the strength of civil society that is perturbs government leaders today gives us hope that it's possible to rebuild the country despite the destruction the neoliberal project has brought to the Mexican society. Meanwhile, power tramples all over itself, administers violence and death, militarizing Mexican life through the state, taking over that, although slow, is still authoritarian. Meanwhile, power closes its ears, delivers monologues at pointless negotiating tables, and only gives pride to arrogance weight as important issues. Meanwhile, those who hide behind power continue to steal the liberty and dissidents and unconformists and bestow the gift of impunity on the real criminals who yesterday and today have made still make up the government. Meanwhile, power enriches itself, decrees death for our national history, and sentences millions of Mexicans to poverty through neoliberalism. Meanwhile, those who shield themselves behind power exclude the only ones who can grant them dignity and self-respect through dialogue and the role in history. They persecute and harass everyone who doesn't mouth the message of powers, law, and death, and scoff at those who promote agreement through dialogue instead of armed conflict. Two national projects, two countries, two Mexicos confronting each other. On the one hand, there is their nation, their country, their Mexico, a plan for the nation that power holds up with bloody hands, with law and legitimacy soiled by corruption and crime. A plan for the nation that means destruction, misery, and death, with war everywhere, at every level, and the use of force as the sole rationale for power's monologue before its mirror. Despotism is consecrated as the rule of law, while sovereignty is squandered. That is the Mexico that belongs to power, the Mexico that is in agony. On the other hand, there is the nation of the community organization, the country of civil society, the Mexico of the Mexicans, a plan for a nation bearing the banner of democracy, liberty, and justice. A plan for the nation that means its reconstruction, justice, and life, with peace everywhere, for everyone, with dialogue as the way that makes its own way, and from which springs hope, with reason and heart as its driving force, with its sovereignty stolen, but this time by the Mexican people. That is the Mexico of civil society, the Mexico that lives again. Two countries struggling between themselves to find a place in the future. One belongs to the power that uses force, the other civil society that uses reasons and feelings. One belonging to power that looks for war, the other civil society that looks for peace. Yesterday, we Zapatistas were criticized for wanting a dialogue with civil society, for addressing her in our initiatives. Today, we are criticized because we don't seek the support of political organizations, armed and unarmed. We reiterate our beliefs in civil society. They tell us that's a poor bet. They tell us we'll lose. They sentence us to defeat. They tell us that you don't speak to or listen to civil society. Rather, you command it. The possibility of a new motherland appeared within the debris of a city that until that moment had always been seen as a synonymous with egoism and inhumanity. Since then, this new motherland walks hand in hand with people like those of September 1985. People, men and women, children and elders, people of no matter what faces, that is to say without faces. People with whatever names, that is to say without famous names. People, city people and country people, workers and farmers, indigenous people and mestizos, teachers and students, housewives and tenant farmers, artists and intellectuals, religious and lay people, professional and unemployed people, like everyone but not just like anyone. Civil society is discomfiting concept and disrupting reality, the forgotten of always, except at election time, the disposable, except when they are required to fulfill their obligations, the excluded, except at tax time, the disregarded, except at the hours of death. Civil society and its proposal for the nation now not only an institution, but a possibility. It is confronting powers and its destruction. While powers militarize its plan in hopelessness and the civil war of Mexican soil, civil society insists on holding back war and turning back the militarization of the nation. While powers delivers a monologue, civil society demands a national dialogue. valuable, and inclusive. While power jails its opponents and lets criminals go free, civil society questions power's lack of accountability and the jailing of political prisoners. While power brutally imposes a murderous economic model, civil society demonstrates for a new political economy. While power destroys, civil society builds. While power rages war, civil society seeks peace. While power belittles meditation, laughs at legislators, and attacks honest intellectuals, leadership, civil society works to create a commission of concordance, and peace for the whole nation. While power kills, civil society lives. Political parties and organizations, armed and unarmed, legal and illegal, open or secret, regional or national. Sooner or later, we'll have to choose between these two plans for the nation. The EZLN has already chosen. Long live the Mexican motherland, the new one, no longer a cardboard motherland of vain. Ostentatious military parades that frighten nobody. No longer a motherland full of gray speeches from gray bureaucrats. No longer a motherland up for sale to anyone in the neoliberal marketplace. No longer the dead motherland who can find in books and museums. May power and its war die forever. May the men and women of civil society live forever. Democracy, justice, and liberty. I did that weird. From the mountains of the south of the Mexican southeast, the Clandestine Revolutionary Indigenous Committee, General Committee, Command of the EZLN. 23. How we doing? We're doing good. We're on 168. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing all right? Hope everybody's doing all right with the few people we have in here. All right. The spiral from the end and the beginning. October 23rd, 1996, Zapatistas National Liberation Army. To the international and national civil society, Madame. Yes, it's us again. But please don't be upset. Not yet. Today we write to thank you for the troubled joy which took Comandante Ramona and the rest of us to the center of power in Mexico. We've seen some of the images of those days during which the whole Mexican political system trembled at the passing of our most powerful weapon. We also learned about the National Indigenous Congress and its honest call to join the struggle under the subversive banner of Never Again, a Mexico Without Us. Yes, that's us, is a difficult invitation to resist. And, well, I think that never again a world without us, quote unquote, will follow. Don't you agree? Yes, of course, everything turned out fine. And you're right. It was like a party. Of course, it ruined more than one person's breakfast. But these things are inevitable. Something very strange is happening in this country when you give no sign of life and wrap yourself up in problems you believe are only yours. Power smiles and leaves everything for later. But the moment you are determined to speak, to hit the streets, to dance, the supreme government gets the strong urge to hold dialogues and show it's serious about resolving the problem. I don't know why this happens, but it's good. It's so good that you go out and dance the little rhythm that goes. How does it go? Yes, that's the one. Well then, today I also write to tell you that we're still participating in a dialogue. I am writing these lines at dawn. We finished the first encounter they called tripartite because your response to split yourself in three and not lose sight of the local, national, and the galactic perspectives. And speaking of galaxies, I'm going back to the Sabia. Sabia. No, it's not that I'm afraid that Heriberto has eaten all the candy in my absence, or that Eve has organized feminist seminars, that with that Pedro Infante movie called "What Has That Woman Done to You?" No, madam, she hasn't done anything to me. That's just the name of the movie, and I am not returning to the Sabi because I want to avoid Olivio, bouncing ball, or Yenneper's questions. And believe me, they're both equally terrible. No, will you see? Haven't you heard about the moons that in October, the moon, etc.? Well, a while back I escaped from my security escort at dawn. Not really. The only thing I caught was such a bad cold that every time I sneezed, well, forget the blast on January 1st. They were nothing in comparison. Anyways, the thing is, I escaped because whenever I am here, they keep me inside inside four white walls where my friends don't come to see me from time to time, 2 by 2, nor from 7 to 6 to 7. I got out, and before my security escort recaptured me, I managed to catch sight of a moon that reminded me of a moon 2 years ago. And on the dawn, like this one, the moon was a solitary breast disappearing beneath the hands of night's desire. But on this dawn, I reread Doreto's last letter, and I should warn you that Doreto's had a pungent for philosophical treaties. So along with this letter comes that follows, and which already began to explain itself by its title. The couch of the end and the beginning. The conch. It's the C-O-N-C-H. I think it's the conch of the end and the beginning. Neoliberalism. Let me see what time it is. We're good. Neoliberalism and architecture, or the ethics of a quest versus the ethics of destruction. In the Lacandan jungle in the southeast Mexican state of Chiapas, there's a desert village surrounded by well-armed military posts. The name of this abandoned village was Guadalupe Taypequia. Its inhabitants, indigenous Toyjalabales, were expelled by the Mexican government's army in February 1995 as federal troops attempted to assassinate the leaders of the Zapatistas National Liberation Army. But I don't want to talk about the painful exiles of these indigenous people who paid for their rebellion by living in the mountains. I want to tell you about the architectural masterpiece that was born on the skirts of the then living Guadalupe Taypequia. In July and in August 1994, the Toyjalabal architects, for the most part illiterate, their most educated, have made it to 3rd grade, raised a masterpiece in the 28 days to the house of the Zapatistas called the National Democratic Convention, honoring Mexican history, that the Zapatistas called the meeting place Agua Escalantes. The place for the gigantic meeting could hold 10,000 seated participants, a stage for 100, a Liberty, a computer room, kitchen, hostels, parking lots. They say it even had, quote, a stage area for assaults. Anyway, all this is now anecdotal and can be seen through other means, books, reports, photos, videos, and movies from that time. What matters is a detail that went unseen by most of those present at the Agua Scalantes in Guadalupe, Taipequia. That 1994, the Agua Cascalante was destroyed in February 1995. The detail I referred to was so large that it was hard to see at first glance. This writing is about that gigantic, unnoticed detail. It seems that the auditorium and the stage were at the center of the great conch shell, coming and going, without end or beginning. Don't get frustrated. Let me explain. The indigenous Zapatistas had raised a more or less conventional auditorium, a kind of instruction shaped like a boat kiln, and a flat part in the front with seats, and behind a gallery with wooden benches raising up the side of the knoll. There was nothing extraordinary except perhaps the split wood benches lashed together with vines. There was no metal in that gallery. When the time came to deal with the hostel, the Liberty, and the other facilities, the rebel Zapatistas, Toyo Labels, and the impromptu architects began to build structures that sprinkled the immediate surroundings of the gigantic auditorium in what appeared to be a great disorder. So it appears to the SUP. It wasn't until he was calculating the housing capacity of each structure that the SUP noticed one of the buildings seemed screwy. It had been unaccountable, I can't say this word. Hold on, everybody.
Housing capacity of each structure that the SUP noticed one of the buildings seemed screwy. It had an unaccountable indentation.
An unaccountable indentation at one end. The SUP, S-U-P, didn't give it much importance until Toyolabo, Commandante Tecco, asked him, "What do you think of the couch?" C-O-N-C-H. What couch? Asked the SUP, in the Zapatistas' method of answering a question with a question, the internal game of questioning the mirror. Quote, "The one encircling the auditorium," answered the Commandante Tecco, in a tone that said, "As the day doth follow the night." The SUP looked blankly at Taco, and then Taco understood that the SUP didn't understand what he understood. So he took him to the crooked house and pointed out how the roof had a seemingly comparious indentation. "That's where the couch curves," he told him. The SUP then put on the face similar to one you have now. So Commandante Tecco quickly made a sketch in the mud with a stick. Taco drawing marked the location of all buildings, and yes, thanks to the indentions in the crooked house, the whole thing looked like a coach shell. And SUP agreed silently after studying the drawing. Then Commandante Taco went to see about the tarp to cover the auditorium in case it rained. The SUP was left standing there in front of the crooked house, considering how it really wasn't crooked. It was the curve of the coach needed to be completed. He was pondering this when the journalist approached him and looking for an answer with deep political significance, asking what the Agua Scalantense meant to the Zapatistas. A couch? This was the SUP's laconic reply. A couch, he asked, wondering if the sup had understood the question. Yes, he told him, and the sup pointed out the curve in the house as he left. Yes, I agree with you. The couch at the Agua Scalantanes could be seen only from above, and only from a certain latitude. What I mean to say is that you had to fly very high to discover that the Zapatistas' couch tracing is its spiral on this poor rebel lands. At one end of the spiral was a library, and at the other was an old safe house. The history of that safe house is similar to the story of the EZLN in the Mayan indigenous communities. That little house was built far from anyone, so no one would see those first clandestine Tojalabels who joined the EZLN. There they held meetings. They studied and they stored the tortillas and the beans they had sent into the mountains to nourish the insurgents. So there you have a Mayan couch, a spiral with no beginning or end. Where does a couch shell begin or end? And its innermost point or its outermost point, does a couch shell wind in or out? The Mayan rebel leaders couch began and ends in the safe house, but it also began and ended in the library. The Agua Calantians couch was the place of the encuentro, of the dialogue, of the transition, of the search. From what architectural traditions did the indigenous Zapatistas borrow? I don't know, but surely the couch, that spiral, invites every entry as well as exit. And really, I would not dare to say that where the couch ends or begins. Months later, in October 1994, a small civilian group arrived in Agua Scalantanes to install electricity in the library. They left after a few days of work. That morning, especially cold and misty, the moon was a promise on which to rest our cheeks and our desires, and the cello bled a few midnight notes into the half mist. It was cinematic. The sup watched from the corner, protected by the shadow of his ski mask, the film's beginning or ending. After the group left, no one else returned to Agua Scalantanes until New Year's Eve. Then they disappeared again. On October 10th, 1995, federal troops moved in by air and took Guadalupe Tepeyac. When the government troops entered the Agua Scalantanes, the first thing they did were to destroy the library and the safe house and begin the beginning and the end of the couch. Then they destroyed the rest. From some strange reason, the indention of the crooked house remained standing for several months afterwards. It's said that it fell apart in December 1995 when other Agua Scalantenses were born in the mountains of the Mexican southeast. All this goes to show that the ethics of power is identical to the ethics of destruction, and the ethics of the couch are the same as the ethic of quest. That's very important for architecture and for understanding neoliberalism. Don't you agree? To Enz Dorato's thesis, which, as you can tell, okay, cool. So what's all this about? Beetles, sea couches, and tinted moons. Well, the truth is that 10 years ago, on the morning of October, old man Antonio explained that the couch is for looking inside and for leaping out. But I'll tell you about that later. So, madam, I say goodbye. I hope you don't forget we're still here. Well, I hope you don't forget too often anyway. Vale, health to you. And one remaining question. If you are inside the couch shell, in what direction would you walk? Inward or outward? From the mountains of the south of the Mexican southeast, Subcomandante, Insurgent Marcos. Vale once again, health to you. And since we're talking about the trap of final options, everyone must agree with me that when it comes to choosing rather to come or go, it's always better to come. The sup with a bad cold and clearly a touch of forever.
Fever.
And then we'll stop there. On page 175, the urgent telegram. What up, Joe?
It was a conch shell,
Thank you.
and it was really interesting the way it was talking about the conch being circular. I'd have to show you a conch shell sometime. They're very spiral.
Hold on a second.
Can you turn it down a little
Hold
bit?
on a second. Oh, no. Go back here. All right. Hold on a second. Who's this? Oh, Fatima. Hold on a second. Is this what you're talking about? Let me get it up.
Yes,
Is that what you're talking about?
That's a conch shell. So that's what they're talking about. Do you start in the center or do you start on the outside? Do you work in or out?
Yeah. All right, cool. There you go, everybody. That's a conch shell. Nice.
They use them in the Polynesian lands and Oceania, as they call it in the book, to make calls, because you have a little spot where you can put your mouth on it where it's really small, and you blow into it, and it makes a trumpet type noise.
Nice. Yeah, I'm enjoying these reading. You know, like I need to process it first, and it'll come out later. Everything will come out later, like it always does. I have a delay reaction. I swear to God. I read what I read, and then I go on, and like boom, everything comes out.
Yeah.
I guess that's just the burden I get to deal with my brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoy this. I enjoy this work. I would love to hear more details about how that indigenous thing went. Like, I would love to hear other people's thoughts and stuff on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that would have been great. That's the only thing I'd probably say. You know. But real quick, let's see what this dude wants to say real quick.
What's going on, guys?
What's up? What did you come up for?
I just want to make a point. It's interesting that a lot of communists or socialists or whatnot. My mom is more aligned with that stuff. She's from the USSR. She was born there, so that kind of explains it. But with the whole Palestine stuff, I never really understood why so many communists or socialists are tied to that. But I read a book.
Because it's a genocide, and that's bad.
Well,
And we're not
I'm
ashamed
saying
to say that's bad.
No. I'm just saying on this scale today, but Palestine has a communist upbringing, which me didn't make sense. But after I read a few books, Operations by Ian Mahai Pacepa, who was the highest-ranking military
settlerism
officer.
isn't revolutionary. I don't know where you're coming from, but settlerism isn't revolutionary. Shakana was right.
The USSR was the biggest funder of the Palestinian national movement.
Who cares?
As well as,
You're
What's wrong with
talking
that?
about that.
No,
What's
there's
wrong
nothing
with
wrong.
that?
Can I engage this?
there's
What's
nothing
wrong
wrong
with
with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It just makes